So I'm here with Joel Hardy from Superbly Green in the greenhouse with buds that are huge, enormous, beautiful. They smell, they reek, they're everything I've ever dreamt of, quite honestly. Joel, what started the dream? What made you want to enter the cannabis industry?
I think for me, when I was a teenager and also at university, I noticed when I was purchasing or smoking cannabis illegally that hydroponic cannabis or stuff with chemicals on it didn't agree with me and sometimes didn't agree with my friends. And what I found when I went to Byron Bay or to Nimbin and picked up organic flower, it just suited my personality and profile and effects better. And that inspired me to start an organic growing operation. And I thought Byron Bay or around Nimbin area was the best place to do it.
So what does it actually mean for you personally to be able to grow in the Byron Bay Hinterlands region? Like, this is probably one of the most magical places in the country, maybe even the world.
It means a lot because this is where I had my best experiences as a university student, coming to Nimbin and Byron Bay, smoking organic cannabis. And I felt like it was the home of cannabis in Australia and the best place to start a grow operation, especially for an organic living soil operation like ours.
I also kind of grew up in this region finding a lot of cannabis, like driving down to Nimbin when, I didn't have access through the medicinal system. It was always a case of I preferred the cannabis from here than what I was getting on the streets. Didn't really know why. And I guess now we kind of do. There's a little bit of the organics and the fact that it just wasn't laced with any PGRs or anything. That was the big factor for me. But I remember coming down to Nimbin monthly at university just to be able to get some good quality medicine. Cool. How would you describe the core values and the mission here at Superbly Green?
Our core values are around transparency. I believe transparency is king in this industry. Everyone should understand where their medicine come from and how it's grown. Around sustainability and organic growing, I believe that's the long-term future of the industry and something that I'm truly passionate about. And around, I suppose, putting the patient first in terms of making sure we put out products that are the best for patients that they can take as a medicine.
On the sustainability, for me, what I kind of see is, it is a lot more sustainable because you're not running giant aircon units. You're not running thousands and thousands of lights. I can see some lights, but you're using sun power. And for me, I think in Australia, we've got so much sun. It almost seems like a shame to grow indoors when you've got this opportunity.
It's true. And I think that, if you want cost-effective cannabis in this country, there's going to be outdoor, there's going to be greenhouse like ours, controlled greenhouse, and there's going to be eventually some indoor as well in Australia. And I do think the majority of cannabis is going to come from sun-grown / controlled greenhouses in this country. There is a lot of benefits of having more controls to cannabis, particularly for flower. So as the industry builds, I think we'll find that those areas will get bigger.
How would people describe the culture here at Superbly Green? Like, how do the staff love it here? How do they feel about working at a cannabis farm in Byron Bay? It's honestly, I don't think there's too many people who love cannabis that would be like, that seems like a terrible job.
You have to believe in cannabis. And one of the interview questions we always ask is, do you love cannabis? And you don't have to be a huge consumer of it to love it. There's agronomists that love the plant just as much as they love smoking it, or quality people that love working with the plant that don't smoke that much cannabis. And I'm happy with all of those people. So you really just have to love the plant is what I would say. And then on top of that, we try to it's a manufacturing business. We're very heavily regulated. So you've got to follow SOPs and instructions and stick to things on time. But I think lastly, just I like a nice chilled workforce where no one's angry and unhappy and everyone's shooting for the same goals. So we tried to have, group targets and goals as a team and trying to sit together and get together as a group sort of once a quarter.
So Joel, tell me, what are the biggest challenges you faced growing cannabis here in Australia?
I think really all of the three biggest challenges come from government and government regulation. We are regulated by the Office of Drug Control, the TGA, New South Wales Health, and it's very unfortunate, but it's very hard to operate a business like that in a regulated environment when there's a lot of other businesses in other countries that don't have to operate in those regulated environments. So they're in a recreational environment, or they don't have the same controls as what we do and pay the same amount of fees. A lot of people don't know, but we can't export to those countries, but they can import to our country. So we're under this hugely regulated environment, but other countries that are importing are not under a regulated environment at all. So it is very challenging from that perspective, and it's hard because it doesn't feel like we get much government support. We get mainly compliance rather than support. So that's the biggest challenge in the cannabis industry, particularly for a cultivator.
Where do you think the government could support you more?
I think from a trade perspective, no one can argue that we can't export to Canada as an example, or Portugal, or Colombia, and they can import to us. No one can argue in Australia that that is a fair rule. So I think from a trade perspective, that would be the biggest, to somehow make the trade barriers fairer for Australian cultivators. I'm all for competition, but it's got to be fair competition, and I think at the moment it's not. And controls and responsibility that people have here is huge, and we can't let that slip. It's impossible to let it slip. It's like the number one priority in the business, because we would lose licenses, we would have batches fail, or serious consequences. So I think the biggest thing that challenges people that potentially come here and it doesn't work out is the regularity and the amount of paperwork that is required and conformance when running a regulated cannabis cultivator.
So what would you say is your biggest hopes and dreams for Superbly Green here?
My hopes are that Superbly Green becomes the number one organic brand in Australia. But on top of that, my hopes are similar to like Northern California, that organic becomes one of the biggest segments in the country for cannabis, because I do believe it has a better taste and smell and is better for the patient long term as a medicine.
What hopes do you have for the Australian cannabis industry?
I really have hopes for the Australian cultivation industry, because I would love to see 50 to 60 small farms or even big farms in Australia growing cannabis and in regional areas, and lots of people working there and growing Australian cannabis. We can grow cannabis just as good as anyone else. You just got to give us time and scale, and we can compete on the world stage. And I think that would be a great thing for the industry. On top of that, I'd love to see more transparency in the industry around where products are coming from, giving patients access to whatever medicines they desire and deserve and want. That would also be my preference.